What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be installing on my 2020 Platinum the Firestone airbags, model number 2445. So let me show you everything we get in the kit and then we'll get started on the install. Super easy to do. Anybody could do this in their garage with just basic tools. So I am going to have help from my mini-me. I don't know if you can see him way out there. He's hanging out in the boat right now, waiting for his time to shine. So let me show you everything we get in the kit and then we'll jump right into the install. Okay, this is everything that you're going to get in the box. And one thing I wanted to mention, guys, I am going to be also installing the Airlift Wireless 1. It's part number 25980EZ. The only reason I'm going to do these separately is just because I know people who follow my channel may be only interested in doing this airbag part and not necessarily the wireless one. So that's why I'm breaking it down and doing it in two different videos. I'm going to do the airbags first, and then of course we'll do the wireless one in the next video. So just wanted to, let you guys know I will be installing that other piece in a separate video. So back to what we get in the kit. Of course, you get your two airbags. That's what they look like there. The two lower brackets right here, two upper brackets. Then you get 4 of these here, and these are also for the lower brackets. These go underneath the leaf springs to secure the lower brackets. So you get 4 of those. 2 fuel pump extension pieces. I'll show you where they go, of course. You get, of course, your air hose, all of your installation hardware, and then this little piece here, this is for, I'm going to use this in this video, but once I install the wireless one, I actually will not be using this piece any longer. But this is the bracket that's used to for basically where the nozzles are going to go for you to pump the air into the bags, and I'll show you where that goes as well. So, and then of course the instruction manual, which Knucklehead is getting a head start on and reading to get a jump start on us. So that's everything that comes in the kit, guys. So let's go ahead and get underneath the truck and we'll get started. Before we actually start the install, you always want to take a measurement of your baseline height of the bed without any cargo in the back or without being hooked up to anything that you're towing. So in order to do that, you're basically just going to take your tape, find right in the middle of the wheel and put it on the ground, and then just come right up to your fender well right here. And I'm sitting at right about 42 3/4 of an inch. So you want to remember that number, write it down somewhere, or just make sure you remember it. So that way, whenever you are towing anything, or if you have the bed loaded down with cargo, you want to inflate the airbags to bring you up to about that number. So again, mine is 42 3/4 inches. So when I'm towing the boat, if I drop down an inch, I'm going to inflate the airbags to whatever PSI it takes to bring it back up an inch to meet that number. We're only going to be showing the driver's side on video. The passenger side is the exact same process, minus the part where we're going to have to put those extensions on the fuel pump up here. So step 1 is we have to cut off the bump stops in the rear, which is right here above your axle, it sits on top of your leaf springs. I'm going to use a Sawzall. Anything whatever's convenient for you, just try to cut it as flush as you possibly can, so that's cut down as as low as possible. I took the wheels off, guys, just so you can get a very good picture of what I'm doing, just in case you're unfamiliar with anything I'm mentioning. So again, this is the part that we cut off, your bump stop right here. As you can see, you want to try to get it nice and flush. This job can easily be done without removing your wheels. You probably don't even have to jack the truck up, to be honest with you, especially if you have any kind of lift in the rear, which I of course do. But again, I just took the wheels off just to give you guys a good shot of what we're doing. If you do remove the wheels, please use common sense and your usual safety precautions. Jack stands, I still have the jacks underneath the truck as well. I never remove them, so I use the jacks and the stands at all times. So if you do remove the wheels, please use common sense and safety. Next step is to remove the 12mm nut right here, and again, you're only going to have to do this step on the driver's side. So again, 12mm nut right there, that's going to release the fuel pump control on the other side of the frame here. just wanted to point something out, guys. On the 2020 that I have here, the fuel pump control box looks a little bit different than the older trucks. When I say older, I mean like 14s, 15s, 16s, 17s. I'm almost positive the fuel pump control box on those year trucks, they have two bolts that are going to hold them in place. I only had the one that I had to remove, the nut right there, that 12 millimeter. And the other thing is, looking at my box, I'm not sure, I don't think we're going to actually have to use them extension brackets, because all they do is separate the box from the inside of the frame of the truck just to give us room for what I'm going to show you coming up in a minute. So again, if you have a 2020, possibly maybe even the 18s and 19s, you may only have to remove this one 12 millimeter nut, and the box will separate from the truck. I don't believe we're going to have to use those extension brackets. The other years leading up to, I know even the 17s, I'm 100% sure that the 17s have two bolts that you actually have to remove, and then you'll have to use those extension brackets to give you a gap between the box and the inside of the frame. Next, we're going to take one of the lower brackets. It's going to sit on the truck like this. So this part is going to be facing down over the axle, which you'll see once we get it installed. You can see it has a hole right here. Take one of your airbags, and the bottom has just a single hole like that. You're going to place it on top of the lower bracket, flip it upside down. In your kit, your hardware installation kit, you're going to have two, they are 3/8 hex flange hex bolts. Take one of them. It has a little bit of thread locker already on it. That's how it comes from Firestone. And you're just going to screw the lower bracket onto the airbag. And you're just going to make that finger tight for right now. You want a little bit of play just to make sure everything lines up on the truck when we get under the truck. So that's what you're going to be left with once you do that. Next, take one of your upper brackets that looks like this. And this middle bigger hole is going to go over the threaded piece on top of the airbag, and then there's a smaller hole in the middle that is going to go over on top of the airbag. You have this little piece. This doesn't serve any purpose other than making sure that this bracket doesn't spin. So when you take it and place it on the airbag, as you can see, the bottom's going to spin because we haven't tightened down that 3/8 bolt yet. But this is how it's going to sit on top of the airbag. So again, the threaded piece is going to go through the middle bigger hole, and then that little knob right there sits in that smaller hole in the middle, just like that. These two other holes are for, I'll show you when we get underneath the truck. There's two, not grommets, but there's two pieces on the truck frame that are going to sit in these holes right here. That's how you know everything is going to be lined up properly. So now we're going to do a dry fit just to make sure everything lines up properly. So what you're looking at is, this is where we cut off that jump stop right there. This is the fuel control, the fuel pump control that we loosened. That's just hanging there for right now, which is perfectly okay. So you're going to take the airbag, and it's going to sit up like so. And the lower bracket is basically going to sit over your U-bolts for your leaf springs. So then you have to kind of compress the airbag to get that into place. And actually, before I even do that, let me show you where it's going to go. So the threaded part on the airbag is going to go in this bigger hole right here. And then the other two holes that I showed you on the top bracket for the airbag, the two pieces that I mentioned on the truck, here and here, those two pieces are going to go in the outer holes on the top bracket. So let me get this positioned, make sure everything is lined up and fitting okay, and we'll continue with the installation. as you just saw, it was actually easier for me to go from the outside working in, since I have the wheels and tires removed. It just made it a little bit easier to compress the airbag, push it down in order to get it in that small space and get that threaded nipple on the top of the airbag up through the truck frame where it goes. So once you have everything lined up, make sure all of the two other spots that I showed you on the truck, make sure they're in the top bracket where they should be. And again, always make sure that other smaller tab on the top of the airbag that I showed you is still in the top bracket where it should be. So once everything is lined up, what you want to do is you want to make a mark, a line mark on the bottom bracket right here, on the bottom bracket in the airbag. What I did was I took a red paint pen and I made a mark to line it up, because now what we're going to do is we're going to remove it again and tighten down that 3/8 inch hex bolt that we did not tighten yet. So this is just a way to make sure everything lines up properly, and you know, everything, when we go to put it back into the truck for good, everything is lining up the way it should. Okay, let me show you what I did. First off, look what happened to my helper up there. Yeah, love it. But anyway, so here's what we did. We made the paint marker, we used the paint marker to make a mark on the airbag in the lower bracket. I did the same thing on the back side before I removed it. Let me see, you can see it right there in the middle. So what you want to do is, once you take it back out of the truck, to tighten down this hex bolt underneath. As you tighten that down, just make sure once you get that secured to the specs in your instruction manual, once that's you know, torqued down to where it should be, just make sure your paint marks are lined back up, and then you're ready to put this entire setup back in the truck. As you can see, I also made some marks on the top, and don't forget, when you put this back in the truck, make sure that this tab, that tab is lined up in that hole when you put this back in the truck. That keeps this whole thing from spinning. So, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this back in the truck, and we're ready to continue to the next step. So once you have that hex nut underneath the lower bracket tightly secured to spec, then you're gonna reinstall the airbag. Again, just make sure everything's lined up, the holes are where they should be. And then you're also gonna take 4 of these carriage bolts. There's actually 8 in the kit, but obviously we're only going to use 4 on each side. You're going to drop them down in the 4 locations that you can't miss on the lower bracket. And then once you have them in place, you're going to have 4 of those that I showed you in the beginning of the video. Now, as you can see, one side has just a hole, the other side has more of an oval. The oval is going to go on the inside of the truck, so it's going to go like this. So you're going to put this underneath the carriage bolts. Then you're going to take your flange nuts that look like this, and that's what you're going to use to secure this bracket to the carriage bolts. Now, there are some lines back here on the inside of the leaf springs, so just make sure they're not caught between your leaf springs and the bracket down here as you're tightening these nuts. Another thing, as you're tightening the nuts, I'm going to get this other side started here, but what you want to do is you want to alternate. So don't just tighten one down and then go to the next, you know, tighten this one a little bit, then that one a little bit, then that one a little bit, and just kind of alternate back and forth until all 4 bolts, carriage bolts, are tightened to spec that is in your instruction manual. Once you have the 4 carriage bolts secured and tightened to spec, then you're going to take one of the large flat washers that come in the installation kit and one of the large nuts. You can't miss them. There's only 2 of each, and they're the biggest ones in the package. You're just going to take the large washer and set it over the threaded portion of the airbag that comes up through the frame, and then you're going to take your large nut. It's a 24 millimeter, already has some thread locker in it, and you're just going to get it started down on that threaded piece of the airbag, and you can tighten these to spec at this point. I know the lighting up underneath the truck is not the best. So what I did underneath there was, again, this is the threaded portion that's popping up through the frame of the truck. This is the big flat washer that I was talking about. So this is coming up through the frame of the truck. You're just putting that flat washer down, and then this is the 24mm nut that you're screwing onto the threaded portion here. And again, you can tighten that to spec. Once you have that done, again, I'm going to show you this part up above here. All you're going to do is take one of the nozzles, and you're going to go back underneath the truck and thread it. It's actually going to go to the inside of this threaded portion like this. Now, you don't want to tighten this down too much by any means. You just want to tighten it till it's snug, and then go maybe another quarter to a half turn, and that's about it. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and go underneath the truck and do now. Okay, once you have the nozzle threaded on to the threaded portion of the airbag that's sticking up out of the frame of the truck, the only thing left to do on the driver's side before we start running the airline is we are going to use one of them brackets that I mentioned earlier in the video. I wasn't sure if we were going to need them or not. We do actually need it, so we only need one. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the bracket. As you can see, this is the fuel pump control hanging down. You're going to take one of the brackets, use the existing Toyota flange nut that we took off of up here, and put one of the brackets on the threaded piece that's coming off the back of the module like that. And I'll take a picture of this and show it up on the screen as well. And then what you're going to do is take one of the supplied 1/4" bolts. You're going to go lock washer, 1/4" flat washer. Tighten that. That should be tightened right now. I already did that off camera. So then you're going to bring it back up and line it up with the hole, and we're actually going to run the bolt through. Hopefully my head is not in the way. We're going to run it through the frame of the truck like so. Then you're going to take another flat 1/4" washer, lock washer, and then one of the supplied nuts, and tighten this down. That way that control box is separated from the frame back there and out of the way of the nozzle, which you'll see when you're up underneath your truck. So, all right, so that's all there is to the driver's side. It's literally the same exact process on the passenger side, just minus this fuel pump control box. And so now all we have to do is run the airlines. One thing I just realized, guys, it's actually easier to leave that fuel pump control out of that hole until we get the airline ran. So I did actually remove that again. I just realized it'll give you a little more room to work up there. Just don't forget to put that fuel pump control back where it goes once we're done. So the airline, all we're going to do is we're going to take it, and you want to find the middle of the airline and basically cut it in half. So just line up the two ends, and then just kind of work your way down until you get to the other side, and you're going to have the loop. So just cut right here in the middle of the loop, and that'll cut your airline right in half. Now, in order to cut this, if you don't have one of the tools to cut an air hose, just be very careful. If you use like any kind of side cutter or anything and snip it right here, if you don't get a clean squared off cut right here, it could affect, you may end up with a leak basically. So if you, I'll put a picture of the tool on the screen. I actually can't find mine, so I'm going to use the sharpest utility knife I can find. I did have a tool for cutting air hose. I don't know where I put it, so I'm going to use a very sharp utility knife, a brand new blade to cut this, because again, you do want this cut as clean as possible. But if you're not familiar with the tool that I'm talking about, I'll actually put a picture of it up on the screen, and I can even put a link down below the video, you know, to Amazon. They're only like $6, $7, $8. I know I have one. Didn't realize that I lost it until I actually came out to do this project. So I'm going to cut this in half right there, very sharp utility knife, and then we'll get it installed. Okay, once you have the airline cut in half, you're just going to take one half and slide it right into the fitting up in there, and you're just going to push it into the hole. When you do, you'll feel it grip it, and then once you have it installed, just give it a couple little tugs, make sure it's in there nice and secure. Driver's side is extremely easy to run. So I'll show you what I did. It's always best to follow existing wiring when possible. So I just have it from the fitting, ran right back in through there. Hopefully this shows up. You'll see exactly where I'm talking about when you're underneath the truck. You can go right up above the frame right here, and then they're actually up in between the spare tire and the frame. There's existing wiring that I'm going to zip tie the driver side air line to, and you literally just run it straight back and it pops out up in there above the spare tire. It's up and protected. It's with existing wiring, and again, you always want to follow existing wiring when possible, just because you know it's safe. It's not next to any moving parts or anything. So that's where we got with the driver side. I'm going to run the passenger side airline, and we'll get the airlines finished up and installed, and that's going to be it. Okay, so for the passenger side, it's a little bit trickier just because of the exhaust right here, but as you can see, here's the nozzle. Again, I know the lighting isn't the best, I apologize. But you can see the red tubing coming out. They do give you 2 pieces of heat. It's a sleeve kind of that you can put over the airline. So I did use both pieces right here. And what I did was I ran it up over the heat shield of the exhaust. So it's ran up over the top of that. And then you can see, let me see if I can get a good angle here. That's where it pops out on the other side above the heat shield. Here's the other piece of that sleeve right here. You can see the black part right there. I'm going to electrical tape that into place just so it doesn't slide off on me. So then what I did with the passenger side is, just to keep it away from the exhaust, I ran it over to the driver's side, and then I took the same path back through to the rear of the truck that I used for the driver's side airline. All right, so let me go back to the back of the truck and show you how to connect to the air valves back that way, and where we're going to secure that for right now. Next step is, you're going to want to take this piece from the kit, and now however you want to run your lines, I chose to run mine to the driver's side of the truck. You're just going to take this piece, stick it to your this is your hitch, the bar from your hitch coming over. Stick it to the hitch like that. Again, however you want to position it, there's no right or wrong as long as you can reach it. So once you have it stuck there, you're going to use the 2 big thick zip ties that come with the kit and run the zip ties up through those 2 slots right there, and then we'll attach the fittings in those holes and we'll be good to go. Okay, so as you can see, I have the mounting bracket secured with those zip ties. The only other thing I did off camera, which this is kind of common sense, it's the only reason I didn't show it on film, is I inserted the brass fittings into the mounting bracket that we zip tied. So all it is, the instructions are very clear on this part. You're just going to use a flat washer on the inside and the outside, secure it with the brass nut that comes on there, and then the only other thing you got to do is trim your airlines, and just to get them so there's not a whole lot of extra. You do want to leave a little bit of play. You never want any sharp bends in your airlines or anything like that can get kinked, so just leave a little bit of play. And then once you have all that done, the only other thing you're going to do is push the airline into the back of the brass fittings, just like you did on the other end on the airbags themselves. They will just kind of pop into place. You'll feel it just kind of hit the groove, and then again, just give them a nice little tug, make sure they're nice and secure, and you're ready to go. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to fill the airbags with maybe, I don't know, 20 to 30 psi, and that way we can check for air leaks with some soapy water. So I'm going to go ahead and fill the airbags up, and we'll check for leaks. So the instructions actually say to inflate them to 70 psi to check for air leaks, so that's what we're going to go ahead and do. Okay, I have both bags inflated to 70 psi, so all you're going to do is take a little bit of soapy water, and you're going to spray right where the hoses connect to the fittings on this end and on the airbag end for both bags. So spray them. If you don't see any air bubbles popping out, you're good to go. That means everything is airtight and working as it should, and your installation is just about complete. So I'm going to go ahead and spray all 4 spots, the 2 here and then the 2 bags, and make sure I don't have any leaks. All right, so I just checked all 4 of my fittings. There are no leaks at all. You would know if you had a leak when you spray the soapy water on the connection. It's either just you're gonna get some bubbles just from the soapy water, but if you see any bubbles like actually like blowing up, like there's air coming through the soapy water, that's when you know you have a problem. So all 4 of my connections were good. I went back and zip tied all my air lines. I apologize, guys. I know this wasn't my best video as far as angles and lighting and all that stuff, but this was a tough one to do by myself, trying to hold the camera in different angles and, you know, get the best shots for you. So I do apologize. I know this wasn't my best work. So one other thing, please don't forget to make sure everything is tightened back up, especially the fuel pump control. I actually have to go back and do that. I gotta be honest, that might actually be best to save for last, because even when you're trying to spray the soapy water on that connection up there, it just gets in the way. So if I were you, if I was gonna do this again, I would save that fuel control box, fuel pump control, I should say, to the very last step. So, all right. So again, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Apologize for the angles, for the lighting. Hopefully this helped somebody out. And if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, put them down below. As soon as the Airlift Wireless 1 module comes in, which should be in a couple days, actually, we're going to get that video installed. So, you know, again, I'm going to do it as a 2-part series just in case anybody wanted to just see this part if they're not going to be installing the Airlift Wireless 1. So, all right. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Appreciate each and every one of you.